India Revival Mission, we are consistently speaking to thought leaders, corporates, experts, governments on what India needs to do next. My next speaker is the CEO of the Niti Aayog and a very interesting voice on this subject, coming right after the 5 tranches of the 20 lakh crore rupee economic package have finally been announced. Was it a washout? What's the real substance in the economic package? To answer all of that, I'm joined now by Mr. Amitabh Kant. Mr. Kant, thank you so much for speaking with us here at ET Now. Let me begin by just getting your take on why this comes down to the package, especially from the markets. The Sensex tanked for over 1,000 points. Do you think there was a little more of packaging than package? People expected more cash to be put out?
Yeah, maybe, some sectors were expecting a direct handout, say travel and tourism or aviation or some sectors, and they were expecting that a lot of direct payment would be done. Now the budget, the package, as far as the 5 different sets were concerned, was looking at what we could do to take care of people in real need, which is the welfare aspects, and which was in the second set, and then look at what kind of structural reforms we can do into the economy so that we are able to drive growth over a long-term period. It's not about 1 day, 2 day, or the next 1 year or 2 years. You don't know how the virus will play out in the coming days. And nobody knows how long and how prolonged this crisis will be. And therefore, it's important that you are able to do very major structural reforms in the economy. Number 3, try and push demand as much as possible. And number 4, push for a lot of public activity on ground. And that has been done through this 40,000 crore additional package for Manrega, that you start creating economic activity on ground. One of the key things of this package, to my mind, is that many major reforms which were held up for very, very long periods of time, and I've been in the government for 4 decades to be able to tell you this, that key reforms which were held up, just to tell you about agriculture sector, the APMC reform, the contract farming, the essential commodities, they were very, very difficult to do without political will. What the government has demonstrated is its political and administrative will to push radical reform. Similarly, on the mining side, look at this. We were importing 5 lakh crores. We are importing actually 5 lakh crore worth of mineral resources into the country when you're rich of minerals in this country. We are importing about 1.7 lakh crore worth of coal, whereas the country is just full of coal resources. So these were all major reforms of putting out commercial mining, putting out exploration, commercial mining out into the private domain. And what it will do is to bring in private sector in. And once the private sector comes in, they will bring flow of lending from the private sector, from the financial institutions in. This is really the key thing in this whole.
But Mr. Kant, the question is that long-term reforms are, always welcome. It's about the timing. Was now the need for long-term reforms or immediate aid? And this is, of course, a debate which has been going on, especially since the last tranche of the package was announced. It's a bit like if you have chest pains and, you go to the ICU, do you first get checked for your immediate concerns, or are you put on a diet? Was the timing right?
So Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, which is the first package of 1.7 lakh crore, was aimed to do that. And the second package out of these 5 packages was actually meant to do that, to take care of your immediate crisis as far as the poor are concerned, and also to ensure that there is actual livelihood on ground in terms of ensuring that there is a higher outlay for a Manrega. But what you're talking as long term is all short term. I mean, if you're able to put out in the next 1 month, able to put out coal blocks, if you're able to put out 6 airports for privatization, if you're able to put out minerals resources, if you're able to transform agriculture quickly, then what are you going to see? You're going to see a lot of private sector coming in. And this risk aversion to the flow of credit, which is a major problem in India, you will see strong investors coming in and strong investors being backed by credit lending. And that is what you need to do to get the cycle going. The rest of the economy is going to be handled through monetary policy. So you need a very, very strong interaction between fiscal and monetary policy. The Reserve Bank has been very active, very, very active, and have taken a far-reaching measures. And as far as the private sector companies are concerned, that is being handled in two manners. One is through the monetary policy, and second is through the IBC mechanism, which is being kept under hold for a period of 1 year.
Mr. Kant, what is the hesitation with loosening the fiscal purse strings? I mean, there are a lot of calculations going around. A lot of them peg the actual fiscal spend at about 2 lakh crore rupees. So a fraction of the 20 lakh crore rupees of the entire size of the package. Is there a concern that this will affect our sovereign ratings? Is that the fear which is holding us back and depending so much on liquidity or monetary policy?
So my belief has been that you should be fiscally efficient. That whatever money you're putting in, you should be able to raise more resources from financial institutions for lending. As that has been the strategy of the government as far as the MSME sector, and whatever help it has given, that use your resources for raising more and more resources. Now, two things we must understand: that while our total public debt to GDP ratio is quite high, it's public debt is 70%, but if you include public sector enterprises, then it becomes almost 80%, close to about 80%. But the private debt to GDP ratio is around 50%. So there's a huge potential for raising your private debt to GDP ratio. The strategy of this country must be that government must retreat and give a push to the private sector. This country can never grow for long periods of time unless and until you don't push for private debt to be raised. We are at very low levels compared to other countries as far as the private debt to GDP ratio is concerned. And this country can't be run on the back of government. The more government you have, the more inefficiency you will create.
It's the timing, sir. It's the timing, sir. Is right now the time to push this long-term plan of increasing private debt, and is it too much dependency on the banking system to push everything out?
No. So if you look at it in a federal structure in a very large country like India, which is bigger than 25 countries of Europe, we must understand what is the role of the central government and what is the role of the state government. Many of you from economic journalism believe that the central government should step into the role of the state government. Who's closer to the ground as far as this crisis is concerned? It's the state government. And therefore, the central government's job is the macro policy of the country. It cannot, if you are expecting central government to take care of every single individual in the country, we are tending to believe that there are no state governments. There are state governments on ground. There is a huge responsibility of the state governments in a federal structure. And more than that, the central government has provided additional leverage of borrowing for the state government. Do you think that there is no role for the
made it conditional? So if I were to turn that argument on its head, I would say then why make that additional borrowing conditional? A lot of states have responded to it saying that this is completely unfair, that beyond 3.5% you have to, we have to prove that we have reformed, etc. Leave it to us.
Yeah, so that's an important point, and I think I must say that the 0.5% is unconditional. Another 1% is linked to what the Finance Commission has laid down, and another 5% conditioned to achieving 3 of the 4 reforms that have been laid out. And my view is that the country must go on the path of reforms, and it's a very, very innovative reforms in this country. Some states had moved ahead, others were not moving forward, and therefore, if we don't push for reforms in the long run, much as the political will in the center has demonstrated its will to push political reforms, so should the states. And this is a collaborative partnership effort between the center and the states to push for reforms. But a lot of what you're saying about direct benefit, etc., is a role of the state, not really a role of the center. If you think that every single migrant worker needs to be taken care of by the central government, which is far removed from the ground, that to my mind is far-fetched. It's essentially the role of the state government.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the question of migrant workers, Mr. Kant, because I think that typifies where people fall between the cracks. This became a whole sort of back and forth between state governments and central governments and between different state governments. Do you think this could have been handled better and we can still go ahead and handle it better? Because no matter whose responsibility it is, no one wants to see this situation in our country.
Yeah, I totally agree that this could have been handled much better. I totally agree that the coordination levels between state governments could have been much better. We must understand one thing, that there are certain states which have a lot of migrant workers and there are certain states which are at the receiving end. Now, when this corona happens, certain states wanted to send migrant workers and the certain receiving states did not want to receive workers, or even if they wanted to receive workers, the community in that district or in that village was not willing to accept them and saying that you need a quarantine status before you get into this particular thing, because there was a genuine fear of corona spreading all over. So this was a very, very complex, emotional, mental, and administrative, very complex issue. And therefore, this challenge between migrants wanting to go home, states not permitting migrants to go home, and certain states not willing to receive migrants going home. And this was a huge challenge. So therefore, in certain areas, migrants defied those orders and started walking, etc. And there have been some very tragic stories on this count. But I think as altogether, it was a very, very unforeseen circumstances. And I think overall, I feel that within states, there should have been a better coordination and within districts. But the central government, let me tell you, since I had one of the empowered groups, we mobilized 92,000 non-governmental organizations and civil society to take care of the NGOs on ground, to provide food, to provide water, to provide all humane services. We've come across a huge number of very fascinating stories of how NGOs have sweated it out to take care of our migrant workers, and that has been the real redeeming feature of this whole story. Several districts have done very well in this, and I think while we've heard stories of this, there are also unique stories of people coming out and providing food to the citizens.
What can be done in your view, even as the situation is ongoing? You still have people who are walking, trying to make their way home, and then now don't know how to get in there. Do you think that more resources can be mobilized, at least to make sure that people are not walking long distances?
Yeah, so now under the new order, the Home Ministry said actually the district magistrates have been made responsible for this. All migrant workers have been put into a portal where they are being tracked by the Ministry of Home Affairs. And the good thing is that district collectors within those districts will take care of, and a vast number of civil society organizations will come to their help. Thirdly, I think the government has provided additional rice and wheat and 5 kilos and 1 kilogram of chana to every single migrant, additional, even if you don't have a ration card. This problem has largely been in the urban areas where many migrant workers have had ration cards at home, but not in the district. But what the government has said is, irrespective of the ration card, you will get this ration you will get this 5 kilos of wheat. So the government has also stepped up its assistance and support.
I want to also talk about, a sort of a related situation which may be developing now. As a lot of migrant workers have moved back home, some states have responded by tweaking their labor laws, hoping to provide them employment there. And then, those have led to their own controversies if those laws have been seen as draconian. Other states from where the migrant workers have left now have to deal with labor shortages. How do you see this situation panning out? Will there be now a reverse migration when Corona ends, or will new equations develop in different states? Because this is unprecedented, where you have about 8 crore people who have moved.
So Tamanna, one of the key things is to understand that we've over the years built up policies which have hugely impacted citizens of the country, and those policies are totally outdated and outmoded, particularly our labor laws. And these antiquated labor laws have led to a huge amount of migrant workers which have remained in the informal part of our economy, and therefore these labor laws need to be done away with. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be labor laws, there should be labor laws, but they should be in a manner where we are able to formalize these workers. And our labor laws have been protecting workers, not creating jobs. So we don't protect jobs, we create vested interests of workers in this. And therefore, my view is that some measures taken by the state governments would actually lead to new set of laws on ground. Number two, I think what it will do is that the labor exporting states are now determined to ensure that industries come in those states, UP, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, they will be determined to see that these workers do not go away, but there is smart urbanization and there is good industrialization in these states. If they are able to do good urbanization, good industrialization in their states, and if they are able to attract investment now, then they will be on the path of long-term growth. Secondly, I want to point out that while laborers may have gone back, we are also seeing a reverse trend of laborers wanting to go back to work. So as more and more industries open, as industries have started giving incentives, you will see workers going back. After all, they all want to work, they all want to earn, and they all want to have a livelihood. So you will see many more workers going back. And those who are in rural areas will continue to benefit from Manrega, which has had additional resources right now.
I must ask you, Mr. Kant, and I'll make this my last question, but I think it's an important one. Even as we discuss the economic package and what the central and state governments do, the fact is we can't really, push back the damage unless we open up. And this is a tough decision to make. You and I are speaking on the first day of lockdown 4.0. States are deciding how it will look in different places. But a question I think every person has right now is there a clear plan? Is there a clear parameter at which point we say, okay, we come back to normal? Can we know in advance and with a little bit of planning what the next stages are, what the next few months are going to look like? Because the uncertainty sometimes has a bigger dampening effect than anything else.
Yeah. So Tamanna, my view is that whatever we do, the virus is going to be here for a while. Till we do not have a vaccine, that may take 18 months to 2 years or even longer. We must clearly understand that we have a very good young population demographically, and we should build up this herd mentality. And our mortality rate and our fatality rate actually from across the world has been very, very low. And we should focus on that our mortality levels have been very low. And we should open up our economy because we need economy to grow. And the best stimulation we can give to the economy is not through any package, but by opening up the economy. And therefore, the central government has consciously opened up the economy in a big way. Now, in the latest announcements, left it to the states and said that there will be only containment zones, very limited geographical areas. Now, there's an element of fear which has come in the state governments. There's an element of fear which has come in the district administration. Everybody is trying to say that I can control the virus. However hard you try, the virus is going to sometimes go here, the virus is sometimes going to go here. And therefore, it's not the numbers which we should be worried about, but we should be worried about the mortality rate and open the rest of the economy with a young population. And it's very, very important to send this message that everyone should work towards really a very good opening up of the economy, because we should not be in a situation where we end up killing more people through other diseases, through lack of adequate nutrition, putting more people under the poverty line rather than through corona. I think we managed, and very well managed, the corona through this handling. And I think India's management of corona crisis has been excellent, excellent and outstanding. And therefore, our testing rates have gone up, our mortality rates are down. And now what we need to do is really, really speed up the opening of the Indian economy, because that will take care of people and that will take care of poorer people on ground.
Absolutely. Just in tune with the India Revival Mission on the Times Network as well. Important to open up. No matter what happens next, it's important to open up and learn to live.
That is the biggest stimulant we can provide to India and to the people of India and to people below the poverty line. Open it up with maintaining good safe distance, wearing masks, and just cleaning your hands and washing your hands all the time. But that's the way to go.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kant, for speaking with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.